It's my pleasure to teach this morning. You met us, might have met us on week one, but I want to make sure that first off, I just kind of point out some of the coordinators that are in the room with us. There's about half of us that are missing. We kind of jump in between services and make sure that we can account for attendance and whatnot. But in the house, we have myself, of course, my wife is just stepped out. She'll probably stroll on in, and I mean stroll because she's got the stroller with her. But she'll probably stroll in with our 9-month-old Elijah here pretty shortly once he falls asleep. We also have Ken and Soraya close. Soraya is right there. And then Dr. Green back there, she is our fearless leader that has been our guidance and kind of the foundation for this biblical finance program for a long time, and one of the catalysts as far as bringing our team together. And so just want you guys, wanted to point us out. I make it a point to point us out every single class that I teach, just to make sure that everybody's acquainted with the faces. But then also I want you guys to build a certain comfort level with being able to use us as resources. And last but not least, Dan Phillips, who just walked in as well. We also have another couple, Luis and Idalis Rivera. They usually come to our first service and help with the 9:15 class as well. But again, I want you guys to get familiar with our faces for the sake of being comfortable with using us as resources. And what I mean by resources, I legitimately mean that our purpose here is to serve this class and serve you guys as our students. It's not about us just facilitating teaching and content. That's great, but I want you guys to realize that this class is for you guys, right? The point of this class is to help you guys on your financial journey, so that one, we can help teach you guys biblical principles, and then two, methodology behind it that's going to help you to succeed financially. And then think about it, our short time frame that we actually have together is only 11 weeks. Well, the week 11 is graduation, so we technically only have 10 weeks together. So our goal in this time frame isn't to get you to a point in 10 weeks to where you say you're set for the rest of your life. It'd be fantastic, and I think you guys will get a lot out of this course. But really, if you think about it, our time frame together, we want you guys to understand what are the principles that we follow, what's the methodology that we're teaching, and in addition to that, build good habits while you're here, so that after our 11 weeks are up, you guys take that knowledge and continue to implement it and get stronger with your financial stewardship. Does that make sense, guys? Yep. All right. So week 2, our second module is actually titled "Trust in the Lord with All Your Heart," and I'm going to give you guys the why and the how. Dr. Green did a great opening for us in week 1, emphasizing a lot of the why. Behind the foundational principles for finances and the biblical principles that back that up. I'm going to focus on the why of what God actually says about why we should steward our finances in a certain way, and even more so, I'm going to give you the how, which is the substance of how we're going to set you up so that you can be successful in this class moving forward. Okay? First up, I'm going to quickly just touch on this, getting the most out of this biblical finance class. So, number 1, attendance. So make sure that you are attending the classes. Number 2, the homework. This is, and I'm going to emphasize this is really where the meat of this class is. We issue 2 homework assignments in this class, your financial statement and then also your spending plan. We'll cover them thoroughly. Financial statement was issued in week 1, and then this week I'm going to issue your monthly spending plan. I'll give you details on that, but what those 2 homework assignments allow you to do is set yourself up early in the course so that you can put a plan, design a plan, put it into effect, and then for the remaining 8 weeks that we have together, you will observe your plan taking effect, and then you'll have opportunity to try, fail even, and make adjustments as well, and then use us as resources so that you understand that, so that you have peace of mind of knowing that you're doing things correctly, you're doing things by good principle, and you also have the opportunity to tap on us from an unbiased perspective that's vested in your success to say, this is how you can navigate this situation. We have a vast amount of experience from an accounting perspective, just in numbers and creating monthly spending plans. But then in addition to that, also understand that we have a large amount of experience, not just in our own from the large team that we have, but then in addition to that, we've had over the last several years, we've had a ton of students that have come through our program. And so it's been our honor to help those students as well, but we've seen different scenarios and different decisions that have had to be made across that time frame. So our goal is to help you also navigate those tricky situations so that you have somebody that is that you can tap on as a resource without you having to feel like you have to make the decisions by yourself and that you're on your own. Does that make sense? Use the wisdom of others to help you on your journey that will help you to navigate and even and go around obstacles that you might be facing, so that you cut your learning curve down, you learn it correctly from the start, and then you don't have to struggle as much as some of us did, right? That's our goal. The principle with that is wisdom. Wisdom is learning from your experiences. Ideally, you want to learn from other people's wisdom so that you don't have to go through those same exact scenarios and learn it the hard way. I'm gonna give you guys parts of our testimony of what brought my wife and I to this program, and what helped, what led us to being involved with this methodology and whatnot, and I'll go into those details as far as where we've come from and then where we are right now as well. And I think it'll be very enlightening for everybody. So I want to emphasize that homework. But then next, the Church Center app. Make sure that you are engaged with that Church Center app. I'm posting the content and everything that you guys will need in order to follow along with this class on a week-by-week basis. That's really important, especially with attendance. Understand life happens, so if you happen to be in or out, this will allow you the opportunity to stay engaged with the class and stay on track. And then last but not least, the book. The book is a fantastic resource. I won't go into details on it, but this book is available in the bookstore, the church bookstore. In addition to that, we have a free copy for you guys on the resources tab of the Church Center app. So we have the PDF copy as well, if you like digital. Let's jump right into the content. So let's talk about the why behind your behind managing your finances as a steward. I'll say this as an opening statement. Your why, number one, has to be personal to you, right? You're not just taking the course just to sit through and because it sounded like a good idea. You have a why of what brought you here to this class today. Your why may be, maybe you've never done accounting of your own finances on a very intentional level, right? So maybe you need help, or maybe you're struggling with actually being able to be strategic with your finances. You might be in a situation where you're just looking to get to the next level with your finances, meaning that I think I use a monthly spending plan, I use accounting principles, but I just don't feel like I'm making enough progress. You might be in that situation. Or you might be in another scenario where maybe you're down towards the home stretch in your career, and you're looking at, am I doing the right things that are setting me up for success as I get closer to retirement? That way I have peace of mind of knowing that I'm going to be taken care of, right? The other part of the why is biblical principle, and I'm going to go into that in depth with you guys. So the number one principle that I want you guys to keep in mind is God calls us to be good stewards of our finances. I'm a numbers guy by nature. My wife and I both work for an accounting firm. She is actually a bookkeeper for the accounting firm. So you can tell who does the finances and whatnot in our family. I learned a ton from my wife and her parents that taught me all about finances, and I had to do that across a period of about 10 years in my early adulthood. And I'm just being transparent with you. I was not raised to be financially educated, and that's no knock to my parents, but I was not intentional about building my financial IQ, and I struggled heavily in my early adulthood. And when I mean heavily, I mean as bad as you can think of it, without me being, without the law coming after me, right? So overdraft fees, unwise with my finances, making bad decisions with my finances, spending more than I had, collection agencies after me, repossessions that happen. And what does that result in? If you don't have good financial principles, your credit shot too. So your decision making, your options are limited when you actually need the ability to qualify for certain housing, or qualify for a certain loan or something like that. And those things were obstacles that I had to struggle with and overcome early in my adulthood. I was also the one who had a large amount of debt for my age at that time, and so like collection agencies were after me. I make the joke that I didn't answer phone calls that I didn't know. I still don't answer phone calls that I don't know the number to, but even more so back then, I definitely didn't pick up a number that I didn't know about, because I knew who was calling for me, right? It was the person that was looking for some money that I owed them, and that was because of my bad financial stewardship. I make the joke that I used to call myself the gingerbread man. It's like, can't catch me, right? So, the debt collectors were after me, and so that's where I came from. I'm giving you guys that context because you see me now. I might be a little bit polished and whatnot. I've been working in the accounting field for a little while now, and so, I've learned to educate myself over the last 10 years. The first 10 years was really rough for me, and I mean by that, like I would have $2 left in my bank account. I used my debit, which is kind of a problem by itself, but I was using my debit card like it was a credit card, and I wasn't keeping up with my cash, right? So I'm going to the gas station, hey, I want to get a soda, and so I'm like, I got $2 left in my account, I can afford that soda, that's $1.25. I charge it, it goes through, but then I forgot that I had charged something else before that, and I only had like 50 cents in my account. So when that charge actually went through, I got an overdraft fee. So that $2 soda went from costing me $2 or $1.25 to $42.25. And I didn't have the first $1.25. You can think about where I was as a young man, right? It was just not a good picture. And so I was constantly running from my fears and my financial obligations up until the point where I said, God, I've been trying to do this my way and it's not happening, it's not working, I give up. I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to follow what you're telling me to do. And I made a decision to reconcile my debt and educate myself, and that allowed my wife and I, which she'll tap in, but we were high school sweethearts. We dated for 10 years on and off, and then we got married 10 years ago now. And so God bless her for being patient with me, but I struggled heavily in that early part, and that decision allowed us to set ourselves up so that we could start out and we can get married, number one, and then start out on a good foot. And that is honestly when my life and my wife's life turned around for good financially. We have, over the last several years, we've had several financial hardships in the form of health challenges that we've had, which has incurred a large amount of debt. And our focus has been to pay off that debt since we've been doing this. And so I'm going to share some of that testimony with you guys, but that's kind of the background that I want to paint for you guys. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you principles, but I'm also going to show you how and why this works through our testimony and what this has done for us. Does that make sense, guys? So I'm going to also give you guys some numbers here, and this is maybe eye-opening for you, but keep in mind these surveys that I'm going to call out from publications like Payments.com and Lending Club Corp, these were from 2 years ago when I first pulled this information. What do you think has happened since then in that financial status climate 2 years ago versus now? Do you think it's gotten
worse?
Yeah, there you go. You think it's gotten better or worse? Inflation is out the roof right now, right? Think about eggs. Your eggs used to cost $1 and something, now they cost $5, right? For a dozen of them. So inflation has made the financial climate of our society even tighter, and I want to call these out to you because keep in mind these were 2 years ago. So based off of these surveys from 2 years ago, 65 to 75% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. That means that nearly half of American households are only one emergency away from financial disaster. In detail, that means that they don't have enough savings to cover 3 months worth of expenses in the case of a financial emergency in the form of losing your job or paying unexpected medical care. Those medical expenses were where my wife and I were. We didn't have a savings that we were able to use to navigate these financial hardships that we were going to come into, and so as a result of it, we incurred a large amount of debt. And our focus since then has been, how do we pay off this debt, right? The idea of accumulating more debt, a lot of people will jump to the solution of, okay, I just need to make more money, right? I got to out-earn the problem. If I need to pay these bills and my current income isn't sufficient for me to pay these bills off, I'm going to go make some more money. It's a great idea, right? It sounds like a tangible solution. You're going to work your guts out. You're going to pay off this debt, and that very well works as well. So it's a great thing to have that that great work ethic that's going to help you financially. However, I want to point out the principle that making more money is not necessarily the solution. Why? It's because if you think about having more money to play with or to use, that's going to help you in your situation. But these studies also show that more than a third of Americans earning at least $250,000, $250,000 a year, say that they are also living paycheck to paycheck. Why is that? Well, the surveys show that 36% of households taking in nearly 4 times the median U.S. salary devote nearly all of their income to household expenses. And they're making $250,000 a year combined in the household, right? This is particularly true among millennials who are now in their mid-20s to early 40s. More than half of the top earners in the millennial generation report also having little to nothing left at the end of the month. Why is that? So what does that really mean to us? The problem is not how much you make. The problem is how we manage our finances that we have, right? What if I put some things in perspective? I want to. Oops, excuse me. If I put some things into perspective for everybody, I want to ask you some questions that might be relevant for you. Calling out those surveys, you get the idea of the financial climate that we're portraying here. Think about these questions that I'm going to ask or these statements that I'm going to make, and think about them to yourself. If they resonate with you in any way, you don't have to react. I'm not saying this to get you to raise your hand or whatnot, but some of these should tug at you, and these should be indications that you're in the right place, number one, because you're educating yourself financially. So you're being intentional towards growing your financial skill set. But then two, it should be an indication that there's some learning that we have to do, right? So the first thing I'm going to say, I don't have to track, or I don't track or have a spending plan for my income and expenses because it's a hassle. I've tried to use a spending plan, but tracking my income and spending is too complicated and it takes too much time. I struggle to pay my bills and expenses because I have inadequate or irregular income. When I overspend, I often think that I can spend less later to make up for it, but I find that that's hard to do. I like to treat myself and others occasionally, even if I can't afford it. My financial situation is discouraging, so I avoid thinking about it. I'm gonna raise my hand on that last one because early in my adulthood, that was me. I was just saying, oh, I just earn more money, right? But I had all sorts of bad stuff happening with my finances that I was, in transparency, I was running from. And so I avoided thinking about it, I avoid talking about it. And what happens with that is I ended up struggling for the next 10 years of my life. And I learned by hard lessons of what not to do and what I wanted for my future, so I made changes from there. But the point of that is that 10 years was a lot of time for me to struggle as a young man. And I get it, everybody's learning journey is different, but I can only speak for mine. If I could go back and do it, I would hope that I would make better decisions, but in transparency, it made me who I am today, right? And that's why I feel compelled to share this so strongly with everybody, because these are the lessons that we learned along the way. The thing that we have to keep in mind, though, with all of that into account, is no one is born with smart money skills. I like to classify skill sets into 2 different categories. There's innate skill sets, which are naturally learned skills, and there are skill sets that are acquired skill sets, meaning that you have to be intentional towards learning those skill sets. So an example of an innate skill set, my young son over there, Emmanuel, and Elijah, who's in the stroller right there. Elijah and Emmanuel, at one point, they learned to crawl, they learned to stand, they learned to talk. Those are things that they learn naturally, right? The things that they acquired are, smiling at me, the things that they acquired are reading, right? Learning to ride a bike, playing a piano, right? What are some other acquired skill sets that somebody has developed? Call it out, guys. Cooking, that's a great one, right? You don't just come out the womb with a frying pan, right? You have to learn, and you learn to get good at it through practice, right? And so that's a great example. I use that example because the problem with our society is that so many of us treat our finances like it's an innate skill set that we will just learn, that we assume that we'll learn as we go. The challenge with that is if we are learning, if we take our financial education from the perspective of an innate skill set, we end up learning through experience instead of being intentional towards how do I do this the right way so that I can start myself out on the right foot, right? And so being realistic, money being such a sensitive topic, especially the topic of the way that you're managing your money, can make you feel very vulnerable. And so a lot of us are less prone to talk about it. I kept to myself for a long time, and I tried to muscle my way through it, and I struggled even more. I call it digging myself a deeper hole, right? And so while the stewardship of your money is confidential, you can't make the mistake of assuming that you'll just figure it out and have the financial success that you aspire for. Because during your journey of trying to figure it out, your financial situation is likely to get worse and even impact others negatively as well. What do I mean by that? That first 10 years, my parents saw that I was struggling. So of course, any loving parent's gonna wanna try to help me out. Well, the money that I was taking from them is now impacting my parents' financial game plan, right? You got brothers and sisters that you might say, hey, I'll pay you back, and then you can't pay back. Now you've ruined the relationship and trust between you guys, right? So that's negatively impacting someone else. You also got to think about it. If somebody else is giving you money, you're now taking their ability to do what they needed to do with their finances. That's a negative impact because you weren't responsible with your finances. And I say you, pointing it right back at me. I wasn't responsible with my finances. So I say all that to say that we have to get comfortable with accepting the idea that if we don't learn how to handle your money, our money, we must get comfortable with seeking out how to build that skill set as an acquired skill set. Have you guys ever heard the saying that you can be a millionaire and still be broke?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what does that actually mean, right? Well, I'll put it into an example for you. So maybe my earnings for that year was $1 million. So my net income, I have a great paying job. I'm a CEO of a company. I made $1 million that year, but I spent $2 million that year. What is my balance at the end of the year? It's a negative $1 million. Would you want to be that person? You got a lot more money to play with though, but at the end of the year, you got a lot more debt as well, right? Or maybe and vice versa. Maybe you're making $50,000, but you live within your means, and you were able to manage or steward your finances to where you only spent $40,000 that year on your living expenses. That gave you a positive balance at the end of the year of $10,000. In reality, who's more wealthy between those two? It's the guy that it's the person that is making $50,000 as a good steward versus the unwise millionaire who is spending who doesn't practice good financial stewardship and is accumulating more debt. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know the attraction of making more money is great, but if you don't have the right principles behind it, you will be broke. It is not fathomable. And if you think about it, how many celebrities do you see that acquire money and then they go broke that quick? How many athletes do you hear about? You know, those bad stories of this person rose to fame, they were great and they were unwise with their money and now they're living on the streets, right? That happens. You hear about that stuff all the time. That's what you mean. That's what we mean by you can be a millionaire and still be broke. So let me also ask you this. What comes to your mind when I say describe a millionaire to me? What's your observation been from society's lens? You guys call it out to me. What are some of the things that you think of from a millionaire when you think of a millionaire? Ferrari, right? Nice cars, right? How about my house? Ferrari. She's like Ferrari and
I like that.
Mansions.
Mansions, right? Lavish clothing, nice jewelry, luxurious vacations. They have a lifestyle that you want, right? That's what society portrays to you. However, in this book, they actually did a study by this guy, I said this guy like it's discredited, Dr. Tom Stanley, who did a study on 1,000 millionaires, 1,000 millionaires, and they studied their how they managed their money and what kind of spending habits that they had. So you gave all these great examples of this lavish lifestyle. In the book that he published, which is referenced in this one, it's called The Millionaire Next Door, Dr. Stanley found that most millionaires don't have those things. What he found out is that the typical millionaire lives in a middle-class home, drives a 2-year or older paid-for car, and buys blue jeans at Walmart, right?
Yes.
Or in my case, Burlington. You know, I'm all about the clearance and the deals. But In short, what Dr. Stanley found is that the typical millionaire found infinitely more motivation from the goal of financial security rather than what friends and families thought about their wealth. Does that make sense? That means that the typical millionaire that has a net worth of at least $1 million doesn't care what anybody else is doing. They're on their financial game plan, and their goal is to create financial security for themselves. Financial security meaning prosperity as well, right? Setting myself up for long-term wealth. I call it being a millionaire and being kind of on the low, right? You don't have to live a lavish lifestyle. And it's so great to know that you have peace of mind, that your finances are taken care of, and you don't have to worry about what other people think about you. How do you carry yourself in that case, right? That's an amazing feeling to know that, to have peace of mind that your finances are taken care of and you don't have to impress anybody with it. Everybody else is trying to impress you, but you can see through it. If you connect the dots, the person who's living lavishly, why are they doing that? They probably don't have as much as what they're trying to portray. Whereas you will be the person who has that financial security, and in long term, you have peace of mind of knowing that you're taken care of, versus I may end up being broke one day because I know that my financial spending habits are not good. That make sense, guys?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about, I throw that up there because it's funny, but my point is this: there's so many misconceived notions about how we are fed about our finances throughout our lives, that we have to draw a line in the sand and then make a decision to change our thought process on the way that we manage our money. That was the turning point for me personally. I gave up because what I was trying to do and the things that I was trying to do to get myself together financially just weren't working. And so I had a come to Jesus moment. I'll share our testimony, but my mother-in-law, her mother is actually the one that really called it out for me. I was missing opportunities to excel in my career and getting passed over on things, and that was when I was really defeated. I wasn't doing well financially. I was trying to get married to their daughter, wasn't putting things together, and then the opportunities that did come about, I didn't qualify for them. And so now it really hurt. And so if you think about like the state that I was in, her mother pointed some truth, and this is the side of a good parent that's financially stable, right? She said, Darrell, I see what you're doing. You're a good man, but you have problems with your finances. And because of that, God isn't able to give you the promises financially that He has for you. You need to get right with your finances. You cannot be right with God and disregard your finances. You need to make a decision. I made the decision, and it was very tough. There was a process that I had to go through, and a timeline of when I had to pay off all that debt and stuff, but that was where my life turned around financially. And I say that with complete ownership of it, because I want you guys to know that you can come from that state. I call myself a moron back then, right? I was just so financially uneducated and making bad decisions, to now fast forward another 10 years where my wife and I finally got on the same page financially, largely due to my efforts of meeting her where she already was. And then I started understanding how to manage our finances better. And then now we as a couple are very connected with our finances. We discuss them all the time. We discuss what our next move is. And so that debt that I was talking about, we've had our hand to the plow in using this methodology for the last 4.5 years, and we paid off a significant amount of debt. And I'm going to give you guys some of those numbers with our testimony, but we've been able to observe that this works, and it works, and you will be blessed exponentially if you do it in the right way from biblical principles. Let's talk about the how. So the how is really where the meat of this module is going to be. Number one, you have to have a game plan. If you don't have a game plan, then it's going to be extremely tough for you to get from where you are now to where you want to go. So the game plan that I want to call out for you guys is there's a link at the top of this presentation that I'm going to share with everybody, but it's the 7 baby steps. That's also in the resources tab of the Church Center app. And then in addition to that, if you have one of our binders, there's a printout of the 7 baby steps. I want you guys to get acquainted with that. We will go through each step and how it relates to this method and describe what you do with that. But what the 7 baby steps allows you to do is it allows you to save for emergencies, pay off all your debt for good, and then also build wealth as well. Your financial statement is your statement that's going to allow you to, it's going to serve as your your current financial snapshot. It's an inventory of all of your assets versus your liabilities. When you take your assets, which are things that add value to your financial portfolio, your liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. So you take your assets minus your liabilities, you get your total net worth of where you are today. That number could be positive or negative. Transparently, I don't say irrelevant as in it's not important, but it's an eye opener towards what you need to do right now. So if it's a healthy number, that's great. If it's not as great of a number, it shows you that you've got some work to do, right? The goal of this is that it's a snapshot. You're not expected to stay here to stay at that current net worth forever. The idea is that you're going to apply these stewardship principles and you're going to build wealth. So take it for what it is. That's just a snapshot and a moment in time to say, what is my starting point? If you know your starting point, then you'll be able to gauge what you need to do and create a plan, right? If you don't know what your starting point is, then it's hard to envision a goal of where you want to be. And if you don't have goals of where you want to be, then you're definitely not going to place priority on the actions needed in order to accomplish those goals. Does that make sense to you all? The last thing I'm going to call out is your monthly spending plan. Your monthly spending plan is your itemized list of all of your income, in addition to all of your expenses. And so we actually have designed a monthly spending plan template that brackets all of your expenses into fixed expenses, variable expenses, semi-variable expenses. We'll go into that a little bit more in detail. But what that allows you to do is say, okay, based off of my income, where's my money going? And how am I strategically planning on allocating or spending my money to move me forward with, one, paying my debts or paying my bills, and then two, paying off debts or building wealth as well. So what it really does is your monthly spending plan allows you to command your money on where it's going versus you being reactive to your finances. If you're not living by a spending plan, then your money's commanding you, right? I was in a situation, I'll put myself out there again, where I didn't have a monthly spending plan. So what did that mean? I paid my bills as they came up. And so I knew my rent was going to come up at the end of the month. I knew my car payment was going to come up, but I didn't have a strategic game plan on having that money available so that I could pay for those things, right? Amongst all the other things that I was spending money on. And so I was being reactive to my finances instead of being proactive in planning where my finances were going. And so this monthly spending plan will allow you to design a plan that is specific to you. It will allow you to implement that plan so that you can see it work in your life. It will allow you the opportunity over the next 8 weeks that we're together to observe, meaning to check how your financial game plan is doing, and then you can make adjustments as well, with the added value that you have the teachers as resources to say, hey, does this look right to you? Can I be thinking about this differently? Is this, am I inaccurate in assuming this? The reason why we like teaching this class as teachers is because we thoroughly enjoy helping people connect the dots and seeing those light bulbs go off on how to think about your finances differently. Transparently, my wife and I, when we created we used to, since we've been married, we have lived by a monthly spending plan, but that large amount of debt that we accrued resulted in us having to design a monthly spending plan towards paying off those debts. And the timeline of that was about 8 years, right? This is 4.5 years later, but we were about 8 years in paying off that debt. That's a long time when you design it, right? That sounds great. Oh, we got a game plan. 8 years is a long time, right? And so we were in a place where we were just being real. We were frustrated because we just felt like we weren't making as much progress as fast as we wanted to. And so we ended up, by God, finding this book, and I got a little testimony to go along with it, but this book allowed us to think about some of the expenses that we had differently, which allowed us to capture money back into our spending and allowed us to apply that towards paying off our debt. And what that ended up doing is, we'll call it the debt snowball. We were able to dedicate more money to paying off debt, and it allowed us to pay off debt faster. So that 8-year timeline, I'll give you guys this testimony, but we are almost done paying off all of our debt. And so it's taken us about 4.5 years to get to this point. We cut off about half that amount of time because we followed this specific methodology. And then 2, we followed God's guidance for it. And God's guidance is really the big variable that a lot of people discount themselves from not being able to be blessed with. And so the next thing I'm going to talk about is tithing, right? Pastor Johnny just did a great sermon talking about these very same points that are in this presentation, which is honestly, it's affirmation towards what we teach here, because it's by biblical principle. It's not our genius idea to say, hey, this works, this is the latest and greatest fad. These are stewardship principles that are backed up by biblical scripture to show us how we should be financial stewards. The Bible is our blueprint, but how many of us actually seek out the knowledge that's in the Bible when it comes to finances? Dr. Cora always points out that there are about 2,000 different scriptures that reference money and possessions in the Bible. That is the single most talked about topic in the Bible. And that's because God knew that that was going to be a vulnerable point for us as humans, right? And so he gives us that guidance. And so it's our responsibility to be intentional towards building that skill set. So I'm gonna point this out. Tithing really means trusting God. Pastor Johnny just said it. So you gotta have faith that the seeds that you sow will produce good fruit, right? If you have a genuine heart and you have this conversation with God, say, God, I'm gonna follow this because I know that you're giving me guidance, but I'm gonna have faith that the actions that I do are gonna produce the fruit that you have for me. So what does that say in scripture? Malachi 3:10, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse so that there may be food in my house. And then here we go, and test me now in this, the Lord of hosts says, if I will not open for you the windows of heaven and pour out for you a blessing until it overflows. Meaning that God says, if you trust me with your finances and you dedicate this tithe, I will bless you above anything that you can comprehend. And if we put it in real perspective, your blessings are all tied to your finances. They're all tied towards that heartstring of tithing, but they may come in different forms outside of your finances. But the root cause goes back to your finances, right? Giving you guys some substance to that. My wife, she's the one who has really had the hardships for us financially, and we weren't supposed to have more children. She's had very difficult pregnancies, and God has blessed us through that and guiding us, but financially, we didn't take as much of a hit as we could have because God allowed us to navigate those things, and now he's allowing us the opportunity to pay them off extremely fast as well. So, tithing is about gratitude. So firstly, we give our tithes to God because we believe that God owns everything in all creation, and God's word instructs us to sow into God's kingdom. Secondly, we pay our tithes because we want to show gratitude and love for God's work in our lives. And then lastly, we also give our tithes because it shows faith in what God has for us and provision. God has promises for everything that involves our finances, but the key to those promises is our obedience and faithfulness expressed through our financial stewardship. Dr. Cora always likes to give this example, but according to your plan, the math says that 2 + 3 = 5, right? According to God's plan, 2 + 3 is going to equal whatever God has for you in those promises. And I can attest for you, we have not only been blessed financially through increase, but we've also been blessed with the opportunity to pay off these debts, and also blessed with family, everything outside of that, but also your blessing may come from God giving you the guidance to navigate difficult situations so that you don't put yourself in a bad financial situation. So avoiding bad financial situations is also a financial blessing as well. So I say that to point towards this. My wife and I were very blessed a couple years ago to be asked by the church to give our testimony on video. You guys might recognize the video when I play it, but this is all centered around the principle of tithing and how that has tied us into our financial journey. And so when I tell you we've gone through things, this is what I mean. And you can fast forward because now time has passed and we have the little one here. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for you all, and hopefully you enjoy this video. Find my mouse, sorry. There we go. We are Darrell and Giovanna King.
We come from two different backgrounds, and I was basically raised in church all my life. So I actually started talking to him about tithing, and he wasn't as receptive in the beginning.
I rejected the idea. I don't know anything about that. The church gets enough money, and this is my money. I remember my mother-in-law, she challenged me and said, you know, Darrell, you're doing good things and you're serving God, but you are not right with your finances. I made a lot of decisions to not pay back debtors. My mother-in-law said, you need to make right with your debtors. She's absolutely right. There was nothing more clear to me that I needed to do than to give my finances to God. And that was when we officially, started tithing. What's awesome about that is I saw God bless that obedience instantly. It ended up reconciling all of my debts.
We were doing everything right. We settled everything together. And then we ended up going through a lot of losses and financial challenges.
March 7th, 2017, our brother-in-law passed away suddenly from stomach cancer. And we found out that we were having a boy not long after that. We decided to name our son Christian after our brother-in-law. My wife started experiencing complications with her pregnancy June 15th, 2017. We were in the hospital as she was having those complications with her pregnancy. Family all around us because they're celebrating her birthday, but she was going into labor at that time. He was born prematurely, but we are so humbled and blessed that we got to spend 2.5 hours with him. He was alive, he was well, he was healthy, he was a great looking boy. We prayed as a family and told him it was okay to go home.
My brother-in-law ended up passing away and we lost a baby. Those were medical bills that got stacked on. We ended up having another baby after that. He's a miracle from God. He's our rainbow baby, our blessing, our promise.
My wife actually had a hard pregnancy with our son that we're referring to now, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, if you guys don't know, that means God is with us. And nothing more fitting than the situation that we were in than to have God remind us that God is with us.
When he was 1 year old, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. The bills that came with that, each chemo was about $20,000. But God provided every step of the way. Going through all that was really hard. It's like you're a Christian, everything is supposed to be great, but you're gonna go through challenges. But through everything that we've gone through, the medical bills that we've gone through, God has still always been faithful and made a way. That's why I say tithing, you can never outgive God. The numbers don't make sense. He just makes a way.
In hindsight now, God prepared us for all of that. It started with us being obedient and diligent with our commitment of our finances. God calls us to be stewards of our finances because it's His to begin with. I am so happy to share that my wife just passed the 2-year mark of being in remission last February. God has exponentially blessed us. And I'm not saying that we did not struggle in different ways, but financially God provided for us in every single way possible. And I don't know where we would be if we didn't have God helping us navigate through all that. Had we not been diligent in our tithing, I don't know where we would be right now because we wouldn't be disciplined in any other area of our life. And God has just blessed us tremendously with our finances. Even to the point where I'm happy to share our latest miracle. We are expecting now. And so my wife is pregnant and we are so looking forward to what's to come. But God is good and He is true to His promises.
Amen.
Amen to that, right? So, credit to God, right? And now that little baby bump right there is Elijah. He's 9 months old. He's now crawling, standing up, saying "Dada." He got his first tooth yesterday. So that's the blessings that come outside of your financial picture, right? Giving you guys some context on those numbers. My wife went through breast cancer. That was what was not in that video. The hardships continued, and I'm not saying that's just our story, right? That's what we've been subject to in our lives. But it's a testimony that God has used, because through that, the bills that we accrued through all of that, just the chemotherapy alone, just to kind of give you guys that context, not the surgeries, not the medicine, not the doctor's visits, all that stuff. $2.4 million worth of doctor's bills. Our share of that from debt, we took about $100,000 in debt from it. Take that any day, right? I got my wife, we got debt, we're paying it off. Over the last 4 years, instead of 8 years, that based off of the current track that we were on without the medical bill, it's gonna take us 8 years. 4 years later, with $100,000 more in debt, we paid off $130,000 on our debt. You hear that example or that analogy of you see the light at the end of the tunnel? We've been walking through that tunnel for a while. And so we've seen the light. We are now at the place, if I can portray it visually, where we can see the doorway at the end of the tunnel. Like we're standing there. And it's so exciting for us because we know where we came from. We know that this works. And all we have to do is continue to put our hand to the plow.
Amen.
And what's going into next is we're going to go into a season of building wealth from here. And that's what's really exciting for us. And through that process, we found this program and we felt conviction and compelled to say, we need to share this journey with our fellow community as well, to show them that God will lead you if you do this in the right way through good biblical stewardship of your finances. Does that make sense, guys? God bless you guys. Thank you for letting me share. Again, your monthly spending plan is your homework for this week. On the message board, I'm gonna post the recap from this week, but there is a how-to video that shows you how to go about specifically designing a spending plan that is unique to you and unique to your goals as well. What we would like you to do is draft up your spending plan, and then if you need any help whatsoever, we are here for you as your consultants. But then in addition to that, bring your draft so that if you want some help on that level, we can review it, and then we can also give you some insights or maybe advice on how to critique it so that it's more favorable for your situation and get you on the right financial start with this program, so that for the next 8 weeks that we're together, you are able to use that spending plan to excel yourself. And then after this program, you're going to use that to build wealth moving forward. Okay? Thank you guys so much. God bless you. We'll see you.
Just closing prayer very quickly.